Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and this video is about how to get started with your own MercedUI project. Okay, so let me bring up the Git repo. MercedUI. Okay, so basically there's three files, three versions, depending on how you want to do it. Okay, so basically, and then there's links right here if you want to download them here in the doc, so you can just find the Git repo, and then the documentation explaining all the stuff, lots of stuff. But what I'm going to do in this one, there's three versions. So in the previous videos you've seen me covering this, I've used the CDN link where I've just basically slapped this as in a script tag, and everything was in the HTML, and I just had a separate script tag for my JavaScript. This is on NPM. Okay, so here's the version that's the NPM module exports version. So if you wanted to use NPM and use, like a bundler like Webpack or Rollup or Parcel, that's the version to grab. And then I have this ES6 modules version. So this one you can use ES6 module syntax, but you may not be familiar with how to do that. So we're going to actually create a project doing that right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. So I'm going to save the link as. Okay. Bring my little save thing here. Okay, what I'm going to do is go into development. Okay, and we're going to create a new folder called test MUI for MercedUI. And I'm going to save this in here. Cool. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to open up a terminal window. Just kind of walk you through all the steps. I'm going to cd into my development folder, cd into that test, MUI, and we're going to open this up in Atom. Atom dot. Cool. Give that a second to open up. So that's going to open up there. We're going to create some files. So let me get rid of this over here. And let's get rid of the welcome guy. Let's get rid of all this. Okay, my Atom's being a little slow. But here's the thing. Since you're using ES6 modules, you do need to have a web server running in the folder that you're doing your dev stuff out of. So if you haven't downloaded live server before, okay, it's just live server, or is it light server? I can't remember. I think it's light server. Okay, but you basically, if you just want to install it, it would just be npm i-g light server. Okay, you install that, so that was globally on your computer. And now you can spin up a server from any folder you're in by just typing in light server. Okay, which I'm going to do right here. Okay, so there's a server spinning in there. And right now it cannot get because there's no index.html in there right now. So we'll come back to that. Okay. And which folder is this? Yeah, that's the folder I want. I don't know what this is from. So let's close that. So let's make our index.html, new file, index.html, and we're going to make our app.js, new file, app.js. Okay, so I'm going to start my index.html, HTML boilerplate, and now I'm going to put my script tag. Except now I'm going to just go to my app.js. I'm not going to do a separate script tag for the MercedUI library because I'm going to use ES6 modules. So what I do need to do though is I need to put another attribute here so that way it knows, or actually it's supposed to be, I think it's type module. Okay, and then actually put a little differ on there. There we go. So just to kind of reiterate, this is a script tag, meaning JavaScript. I'm bringing in some JavaScript, but we're going to be doing it using modules. So I have to make sure I specify type modules, and then the source file is app.js, and the character set UTF-8, and I'm deferring it, meaning don't load the JavaScript till after the DOM is loaded. Cool. So now what I want to do is we're going to go to our app.js, and I'm going to load in the stuff that I want used. So we can use our ES6 imports. So we would just type in import. I'll put 2 brackets here, because what you're doing is technically the way exports work is that I have this file. So if we go like here, the MUI module, see like every function, okay, that's important, I do an export clause on there. What that means is that when app.js takes a look at this file, it's going to create an object of everything I've exported. So it's going to look for all these exports and create a giant object. But I only want to take certain functions from that object. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to destructure them from that import. So right now, all I really want is MercedElement. Okay, we're going to start with that. And actually, I also want $M and $S. And we'll come back to what those are. Okay, that's all I want for the moment. And where's it from? Put in quotation marks, /MUI module.js. Save. Okay, that brings in the library. Nice. Okay, and then again, if I want to use any of the other functions from the library, I would just add them in there. So far, this is really all I want right now. So, MercedElement, again, this is a library built on web components, so that way you can do UI work. It has a lot of the same features as React, except it's using web components, which makes the library a lot smaller, and basically, because the core of it's leveraging what's already functioning inside the browser, which also means when you create your components, you can actually use them in your HTML file. Okay, if you use React, kind of everything has to go on in your JavaScript, and basically you're using all your components in your JSX, and you are appending something to like a root element and going from the building from there. So here we go, MercedElement. So basically we're going to create our first component. We're just going to create a hello world component, and basically the way this works is we're going to create a new class. We're going to just say hello world, which extends MercedElement. Okay, and then we call the constructor or this new class, pass in no parameters, and all we have to do is call super, which means we're calling the parent constructor. So technically what this is doing is that I have built a constructor that's part of this MercedElement class, and this is calling it. And this essentially takes 3 parameters: a builder, which will explain what that is, state, so that's whatever your initial state is, and a reducer. If you're familiar with Redux, then you know what that is. If not, you don't have to. So I could literally just make this component. I'd be good enough with just state and a builder. So state, right now, we're just going to keep it as an empty object. I'm not going to have any state in there initially, so that's fine. Okay, now the builder is a function, and the function returns your HTML that you want to be wherever this component is. Okay, so the way you would do this is you create an arrow function. The builder always takes state and props. So whatever your state is, whatever that component's props are, which work the same way as you're familiar with them in React, whatever that is gets passed in, and then your function can do whatever it needs to build out its HTML template. What I generally recommend is that what you do in your function is you create 2 variables, const style, okay, and then what you do here, you use backticks. I always use backticks for creating my template strings. Although technically, the only reason you would need backticks is if you're going to do interpolation. Okay, pause this for a second while those sirens go by. Okay, so, but basically what you would do here is here you can put your style tag, and you can specify any styles that you want. So I'm going to specify, we're going to do an H1 with hello world. So we're going to say H1, and we're going to say color red. Okay, cool. Then I would do another, oh, there's my bird. Okay, and then I'm going to do another variable called template. And then here we just do a string with the HTML. So in this case, it's just going to be H1 hello world /H1. Cool. Neat. H/H1. 1, and basically that's good enough for now. And then basically what I would do is I would return with backticks, because I'm going to use interpolation, return style, okay, and template. That way you can just do them separately without having to really worry about building this one giant string. But at the end of the day, all that matters is at the end you return a string with the code that you want for that block, that component. Every component does get its own shadow DOM, which we'll come back to in a moment. But that's it. There we've created a component. Now we just have to actually make an HTML tag that we can use in our HTML. So MercedElement, the class, has several static functions. One of them is make tag. This makes the HTML tag. The way this works is first you pass in the name. So we're going to call it hello world. It always has to have a kebab, which means it has to have a dash somewhere in the middle. That's just sort of the way that the browser or web component API is designed. Okay, hello world. And we're going to basically say it's attached to this hello world. Okay, this hello world class. There we go. So this is a component. There, it's all done. Save. Okay, and then I can go to my HTML and just do hello dash world. Hello world. Save. Okay, and then that's done. Okay, so now I should be able to go over here. Let's see, let's refresh this. There you see, hello world. Okay, and I can now use this tag several times. And now I'll have hello world on there several times. See, neat. Now that's not too exciting. It's more exciting when you start actually having dynamic stuff. So first let's try out using props. So let's say I did this. Let's go back to our app.js. Instead of it just saying hello world within the h1, we're going to pretend that this is going to have a property called hello. Okay, so then what we do is we interpolate here props.hello. Okay, so I'm going to save that. So right now I should just say undefined on the screen because it's looking for props and there's no props yet. See, it's undefined. There's no props, so I got to add props. So we can do something different in each one. Hello equals hi. Hello equals bonjour. Hello equals Ohio. Hello equals hola. Cool. And see, it changes based on the props that you pass it. Okay, so basically you can just interpolate props wherever you want in your template, which is very nice. Okay. Yeah, and you can even interpolate styles. So you can actually pass styles in there, interpolate into that string. You could do it really whatever you want. Okay, at the end of the day, your builder function can do all sorts of cool, fun, magical stuff. Cool. Now let's pass in some state. Okay, so let's say here we have state that starts off as goodbye. There's a value called goodbye, and then right now it starts out with a string that says goodbye. Okay, so there we have, again, in our initial state, because it's the object that you pass in as the second argument. Save. And basically what I wanted to do is add another line to this, where we're going to pass in an h2, and we'll use the state. So this will be state dot goodbye. Okay. Save. So now when I take a look at this, hi, goodbye, hi, bonjour, goodbye, Ohio, goodbye, hola, goodbye. Very nice, very nice. Okay, and then here we can do another style. h2 color green. Save. Okay. And if I go here, now they're all green. Huzzah. Okay, cool. Now, let's say I want to create a new element and attach it to the body, okay, using just normal JavaScript DOM manipulation. What I did is jQuery once upon a time was a library that tried to make the DOM manipulation a lot simpler by giving you a very simple syntax. But it really abstracted it a lot, where you're pretty much doing things in a very different way. So what I did is I just kind of met somewhere in the middle, gave you a much quicker way to type it without necessarily changing the fundamentals of what you're doing. So let's try that out. So let's say I want to create, first I want to grab the body tag. So if I want to grab the body tag from the DOM, okay, actually let's not even do that. Let's grab one of these tags, and we're going to make it a little bit more complicated. We're going to add like an h3 to it, but only to one of them. So we're going to give this an ID like you would anything else. So we'll call this my test element. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add h3, but only to that one. So this hello world tag is in the DOM. It's on the actual normal document object model. Okay, cool. So I'm going to so what I do is you do $M. That's going to be sort of like your jQuery $. And so it'd be so basically what I want to do is I want to do const test, because we're going to save it in a variable called test, equals $M dot select, which is like select, which is the same thing as query selector. But see, that's a lot quicker to type. And then I'm going to grab test. Or not, actually, I'm going to grab, actually, I don't want to use query selector. I want to use by ID. Okay, and by ID, which is the same thing as get element by ID. And I want to grab it based on test. Cool. So I grab the element, and just to confirm that I did, console.log test. Save. And let's go over here, Control-Shift-I. There you see, I grabbed it. Cool. Okay, but now what I want to do is I want to add an h3 to that template. Okay, here is the deal. Okay, and I'm going to add that h3 inside that h2. Or actually, what I'll do is I'll create a div. We'll play around with it. Okay. What I'll do is actually I'll put a div in there for me to grab. Planning ahead. But this is a shadow DOM, which means I cannot grab this div from the normal DOM. So I can't use that $M. I couldn't use document.getElementById because a component's elements are in its shadow DOM, so it's in this sort of outside DOM. Okay. So what I did is I made $S. Usually what you have to do is you'd have to do the element dot shadow root dot query selector or get element by ID. But here you can just do $S, which means a shadow DOM. So you're applying it to a shadow DOM. I'm just going to want to select. So I'm going to use which is the same thing as query selector. The only difference here is that when you use query selector normally, you would just pass in the name of the tag you want to grab. Here you're going to pass in the element whose shadow DOM you want to access, which is test. So I want to look in test shadow DOM, and I want to grab the div that's in there. Okay, cool. So that'll grab the div that's in there. Okay, and just to make sure, and then I need to save this in a variable. So we'll call this const div. Save. So let's go over here and take a look. Well, actually, did I console log it? No, I didn't. Console.log div. Save. And I hit refresh. And there it is. See, there's that div. Cool. And the great thing about that is that now it's really easy to think through what are you grabbing something from the DOM? It's going to be $M, the M being for MercedUI. If you're grabbing something from a shadow root, you're going to use $S, S for shadow root. But otherwise, the logic is the same as just normal DOM manipulation. Just makes it a little bit less verbose. Cool. So now what I can do is I can be like div dot inner HTML equals h2 Actually, I wanted to do an H3. H3, look, I exist. Save. And let's see what happens. And there it is. It exists. And see, I only added it to one, because each instance gets its own shadow DOM, which I can then manipulate after it's been created. Cool. So that's all the $M and the $S do. Neat. Okay, the only downside with doing stuff like that, the only thing to be aware of is that what's going to happen is that once the state changes, the component re-renders. So that should end up removing anything you've added in after the fact. So you really want to kind of do your templating within the builder function. You want to build your component within that builder function, so that way it's always the same component every time. But again, you can manipulate it using those functions if you wanted to. Cool. So let's actually play with the state real quick. So actually, let me go bring back the test. So const test equals, again, that was $M dot by ID, and we were grabbing the one that had the ID test. Cool. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to use a click function. We're just going to create a button. Okay. Click me / button. And this button will have a normal onClick function. I don't have to do anything funky. Don't have to worry about any change in syntax. Just normal, run-of-the-mill, just doing HTML stuff. So here I can just be like test, because we saved it in the variable test. And every component has a setState function, just kind of like React. Test.setState equals, and then you can pass in the state. Cool. So we're going to say the new state is going to say have the property called goodbye again. Except now it's going to be hello. Okay. Save. Okay, so refresh. And then I click me. Like at the end of input. Oh, that means I made a mistake somewhere in my code here. I didn't close something right, did I? Oh, that's right. Okay, this is in quotations, so I need to use single quotes inside here. There we go. Save. So then I click here. So again, this one's going to be the one that changes because this is the first one. And see, now that says hello. No longer says goodbye. Okay, so I'm able to update the state and it re-renders the component. It just reruns that builder function. That's essentially what happens. That builder function, which is kind of like the render function in React, just rebuilds that component every time I update its state. And then you also have a reducer. I'm not going to get into that now. There's other videos on this. So you can see where I do all that. But I mean, this is how you could use it with ES6 modules. And again, I could, because I'm using modules, I could just keep breaking up my code. So what I could do is move this, cut this out, and then move this into a separate file. So new file, hello world, hello.js, we'll say. Put the code in there, save, export it. Okay, it's got to be exported for me to be able to bring it in. But now I can do this. Import hello world from ./hello.js. Okay, and then I just keep the make tag element there. So that way I make that tag. Okay, although I'm going to need MercedElement in that other place. So I need to bring this over here. This is always where it gets a little funky working with modules, because since I refer to MercedElement over here, I need to make sure I import MercedElement. I don't use $M or $S, so I can just do that. Cool. save, save, and this should all be working, and yep, still working. Okay, so I can keep building out my components, and you see like my code just becomes a little bit easier to follow. Okay, I just basically put all my components in separate files, and I could just register them with the DOM here. I should be able to I can just register it here. It should still work. So if I do this, cut, and move that to here as well, that should still work. Let's just double check. Save, save, and yeah, it still works. Everything still works. Okay, so you can really kind of, that's a great thing about the ES6 modules way of doing these things. One, you don't have all the you don't have to worry about setting up bundlers and all that stuff like you would with like Webpack or Rollup. You still get all the benefit of like imports and exports in dealing with your library. Only key thing is that now you do have to run a server in the folder as you develop it. But again, Light Server makes that pretty easy. And that's that. I mean, basically, that's how the MercedUI library works. And again, you could bring in React or Vue or whatever. Again, these are web components, so they don't necessarily need. They can play friendly with other frameworks. You could actually sit there and slap these web components in the middle of your React JSX. You could slap them in the middle of your Vue components, in the middle of your Angular components. So you can make components that would work, that would play friendly in any environment using MercedUI, because it's just leveraging web components. Okay, so basically you would just sit there and you can just make your elements, import, and again, you don't have to import it. You don't have to import it relatively. You could actually import it if you have the files hosted somewhere. You can actually just type in the whole URL and it'll bring it in. Like, let me give this a shot. We might run into a CORS issue, but we'll give it a shot. Like, I should be able to just take this URL here. Although I do think we'll run into a CORS issue in a moment. But you could host it somewhere, and it should just work. So if I just put this right here, like this instead, HVLX MercedCoder MUI modules, same thing here. It's bringing down the same file. Doesn't have to be something right on your computer, and this should still work theoretically. Yep, I figured there was going to be a CORS version. As you can see, it's been blocked by CORS policy. No access control, allow origin header is present on the required resource. So you'd have to have it hosted somewhere where you're not going to run into that particular issue. It does work if you put it, like if you did this version, the CDN version, as a script tag. That works just fine. It's just because of, it's because it's a module, there's suddenly stricter browser permissions that you have to watch out for. But otherwise, the point is you could, if you wanted to, and if you had it hosted somewhere else that had the proper permissions and security stuff. So let me change those back. Control Z, save, save. Oops. Z, save. So hopefully this one showed you how to set up a project, but one also just taught you in general how to use ES6 modules outside of sort of NPM world, because like Webpack and Rollup will simulate the use of ES6 modules, but here you're actually using ES6 modules in the browser. This kind of hopefully will suddenly show you this is a thing. This is a thing you can do, and it's built right into your browser. So enjoy. Have a great day. My name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.